All right, we're going to look at some bridge plate overlays again. I've already done one video on bridge plate overlays, but this time I'm going to take it to some extremes. Let me explain what I'm talking about. First of all, our guitar is a 1942 D18, and it had a little bit of problem with the string windings coming up over the saddle, which is why I started this whole process. The question was, there's several ways of dealing with string windings coming over the saddle. One way is to check your strings, because it turns out that whatever band of strings was on this 1945 back here has really long windings, and the windings themselves were causing the problem. Another way you can deal with this is to double the ball ends. You can put two ball ends on there. We tested that in the previous video. And the third way that you can deal with this is to use a plate overlay. And we're going to see some pictures of the overlay so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. But it's just a thin thing that goes, there's a certain way I like to do it, and that is everything is forward of the pins. There's nothing going back. You'll see that when you look at the picture. Thin, glued to the bridge plate. I'm using a weak glue here. I'm using Titebond bottled hide glue, which is weak. It's easy to take off. It's just holding the plate in position. So the question is do any of these significantly change the sound? I'm not really looking for tiny little minute differences. So if you are struggling to hear a difference here, there probably is not really one in here. We're not really trying to tease out little bitty tiny differences, because I feel like just changing my pick could make enough difference to override some other difference. What we're looking for here is fairly major changes. So in other words, if I pulled this mandolin off the wall and I played it back A-B with this guitar, could you tell the difference between a mandolin and a guitar? I hope so, you know? That's a major difference, a big major difference. Major. Baseball, football, you know? They're different. I'm not a sports fan. This is stretching my analogy here. I'm a dirt bike guy. But, all right, so let's say we take the Telecaster. This is why I have all these Telecasters. Telecaster versus a Martin D18. Can you tell the difference? They're both guitars, you know? Can you tell the difference between that? I hope so, you know? This is like a college football versus pro football, maybe. I don't know if that analogy works. You got my point. Two different guitars. Suppose I take this 1942 D18 and I compare it to a modern 028. Let's go with an 028. Two acoustic guitars. Quite a bit different. Can you hear a difference between them? I hope so, you know? All right, what if we took a Dreadnought? What if we took a Epiphone? No, a Recording King. We need something sort of similar. Recording King D18 style guitar compared to a 1942. Can you hear a difference? You know? Without being biased, maybe you can, maybe you can't. Okay, those are the kind of significant differences that I'm kind of looking for here. I'm not, trying to tease out little bitty tiny differences. But I wanted to, on this test, I wanted to really exaggerate the bridge plate overlay. What I want you to do, I want you to listen to these three tests. There's A, B, C. I want you to listen to them. And I'm going to make it harder on you this time, because I'm not going to do A, B, and C in order. I'm going to randomize. I'm going to mix up the order. So the first test, which is me strumming, you might get C, B, A. I don't know yet because I haven't edited it. And then when I do the rhythm playing, you might get B, C, A. And then when I get to the E chord thing, you might get C, B, A. I don't know. I'm going to mix them up. The only thing that I will tell you this is that my hat position stays consistent. So if you want to cheat, you can look at it. You can see A is no hat. B is a hat forward. and C is the hat backwards. But I'm going to mix them up so that your ears are challenged in different ways. That's really more of a true scientific experiment. We're not doing science here. We're doing mock science. But a real scientific experiment, you would mix them up randomly, and you would also do a duplicate. So I would have two A's in there at one time, and two C's and two B's to see if you statistically differentiate between the two. We're not going to go to all that trouble, but I'm going to randomize here. So I recommend you get yourself a little piece of paper and write down on it chord, rhythm, E, and lick. And then write down on there as you listen, which one do you think your observations? Just your observations. Do you think A is terrible? Do you think B is terrible? You can just put a plus and a minus or whatever you want to do. G, not G. Just do something like that. And then when you get done, look back over your notes and see if you said that B was terrible the whole time, or if you liked B at sometimes and you liked A, that kind of thing. Pay attention to that. And when you get to the end, I'm going to tell you what the answers are, and we're going to talk more about what actually is in here. Okay? All right, now that you have listened, here's the answers. A was the ball end sitting straight on the bridge plate, just as God and C.F. Martin intended. Although I'm not sure they accounted for the fact that the windings went over the saddle. But A is the ball end sitting on the bridge plate. The windings are up on the saddle, which there's nothing I can do about. That's what we're trying to control here. But they did wrap evenly over it, so the windings have a ledge where the winding stops, and you have a smooth surface going around here rather than the ledge being on the saddle. I did pay attention to that. But A, are the ball ends sitting straight on the bridge plate. B is a rubber, a rubber bridge plate overlay. And the reason I use rubber, and believe me, it was a headache. But I thought about what do I use to really dampen vibrations. On a dirt bike, on a motorcycle, if you have vibrations in handlebars, and I have on various bikes, what do? You put a rubber mount on there, and that absorbs the vibrations. So I got some old bicycle inner tubes, and I cut out rubber strips. I cut out 5 rubber strips, and I cemented them together. And then you had to get the holes in the thing, and that was really tough. I needed a hole punch, bam, and I didn't have a hole punch here. So I ended up heating up something. What did I heat up? Oh, a soldering iron. I just used a soldering iron, and it went through there. And then it still wasn't good enough. And I ended up putting it on an awl and cutting out a circle, and I got holes in it. So we had 5 inner tube deep. I mean, I had a lot of rubber in there. It was 1/65 thousandths of an inch thick, 0.165 thick of rubber. Now, it didn't end up that way because what happened is when I strung it up, the rubber actually pulled up into the bridge plate holes, and it didn't stay nice and neat like I wanted it to. But the ball ends were insulated from the bridge plate by at least 2 or 3 pieces of rubber. Enough rubber to make it, I think, worthwhile. So that was B, rubber. The last test, C, with the hat backwards, C was an ebony doubler. And there's a picture of it right here. That was an ebony doubler. It's thin. It's 50 thousandths of an inch thick, just enough to pull it in. And you can see I have everything in front of the pins so that it really is just making a support for the ball ends, and that's what's pulling it down. I used ebony this time because I have this guitar already with maple. In the previous video, it had a maple overlay. And I thought it would be interesting to see how it compares with ebony, because ebony is a nice, really hard thing. And this guitar tends to be a little bit, it has an ebony truss rod, so I thought ebony was a good aesthetically thing. This guitar tends to be a little bit, I want to say shrill on the G string. And what I was trying to do is tame that just a little bit, make it just a little bit more meatier sounding. On the 45 back here, the 1945, I used the Southeast Asian rosewood overlay. It has the same issues. And I really like the sound of that. I thought, that sounds good. I added a little bit of something to it, a little bit of meat to it, without taking away the D18 essence. So on this guitar, I used the ebony overlay. Tony Rice's famous D28, the antique. That one has an ebony overlay. I don't know how thick it is. I've never seen a picture of it. But it has an ebony overlay on it. So I thought, let's do ebony, So C was an ebony overlay. So I don't know what they sounded like because I was doing ABs and working on the guitar, and I never had a chance to directly compare the guitar. So I'm going to have to listen to the video myself and see what we got here. But second, just tell you that sitting here playing it, first of all, the ball ends sitting on the bridge plate, that G string was a little shrill to me. Sounded shrill to me. It was like just a little, it was nasally. I didn't like the tone of it. When I went to the rubber, there was not as much difference as I thought there was going to be. I thought maybe the bass was a little bit muted. So you listen to that sample again, go back and listen to all the B samples and see if you think the bass might be a little bit muted. because this bass sounds really good. And when I heard it with the rubber, I was like, it's not dramatic, you know? The guitar still sounded pretty good, but maybe that sounded a little bit muted. Maybe. I don't know. I gotta listen to the video. It's just my impression there as I was listening for something. Like maybe it had dead strings. These are dead strings, but really dead strings, you know? When I got to the ebony overlay, it was nothing earth-shaking. There was nothing dramatic. But I thought, man, that sounds good, you know? It sounds fat. It does not sound worse to me. Maybe it sounds worse in the ABC on video. I don't know. But if I pick this guitar up right now, not knowing anything about it, I'd go, yeah, that's nice, you know. Sounds good. We're leaving the ebony in. I'm done messing around with this guitar. That ebony double is going to stay in there. If somebody later down the line wants to take it out, it's super simple. You just dampen the bridge plate with water for an hour or two. Let it work on that glue, and you can just reach in there and pry it off with a chisel. It's no big deal. It's just pretty easy to do. And by the way, that little scrape on the bridge plate, that was from something else. That wasn't me. So I'm leaving the ebony in there. It solves the problem of this. It reinforced the bridge plate a little bit. And as I looked at that bridge plate about 100 times, there is a slight crack running in between two of the pins. So I think that having that little piece of ebony on there reinforces that crack a little bit, prevents further problems down the line. So I just honestly don't hear a thing in the world wrong with that thin ebony overlay on there. So it's going to stay in this guitar. And I think we're done with this little experiment. So I'm looking forward to your comments as always. Let's play a little bit. Not moving. haven't played that in a long time. It was coming back to me as I went along, but golly, this is not. This is my favorite. Favorite of the vintage Martins that we have in 1942 D18. Ebony truss rod, rear X, scallop braces, got some cracks in it, got some dings in it, got a busted headstock that's been repaired. This thing though is just light, rings like a bell. It's got a unique tone to it. Great neck, really nice neck on it. Feels like a 70s. Got a good neck on it. This is my favorite. It's a good guitar. 1942. All right, see you later.